Howdy neighbors, welcome to another YouTube video. We recently just had a lot of news come out about the Harry and Nitro stride decks, and it got me to thinking. I realized that a lot of players haven't really gotten too acquainted much with Premium, and a lot of players are starting to get a little bit more interested, and especially going into the BCS season. A lot of people are wondering, hey, what cards are viable or what cards are kind of good that I can bring myself into Premium? And here's going to be a tiny guide to show you some of the cards that you can play in Overdress that could also be paired in Premium as well. Some of these cards, you notice that for some of the veterans, you'll be like, well, some of these cards are not really that good. But hold on, this is going to be a duel. Multiple clans from multiple nations can be applicable for some of these cards, and archetypes. These are some of these cards are very archetype specific. So these are going to be for very specific decks within Premium, so keep this in mind. So if you happen to own any of these cards, what these cards could probably do for your deck is going to be completely different for what it can do for a different archetype. So here we go. Don't forget, there's 26 clans within Premium. First things first, we have Cool Headache Executor Mikani. So it's a bit different from Go-Go Mikani. It is a bit of a removal piece. We used to play this a little bit in Pale Moon, since you didn't really need to use like Tricky Assistant, etc. But it does end up making you pay a cost of your soul. So I wouldn't really play this as much as we used to anymore, but if you happen to have this lying around and you want to give this a test out, go for it. I do happen to like Gruesome Scythe Dragon for Premium a whole lot more, and this can be played in multiple decks within Premium. It can be played in Dark Irregulars, it can be played in Pale Moon. It has a lot more success in Pale Moon at the moment, but at least having this around is still kind of nice. Pale Moon does still have access to our card called Tricky Assistant, which can choose one of your opponent's rear guards, choose one of yours, and both of them go into Soul, which does end up getting rid of like one pesky multi-attacker or something that probably has like OT power on top of it that might not have resist, and you can get rid of threats that way. And especially keep in mind, people who are stepping into the BCS sphere of Premium, that we have access to G cards, so defensive strategies are abundant. You can't get quite like pushed from 4 to 6 all too quickly unless your opponent is having a pretty bum hand, so that the cookie crumbles sometimes. All right. Then we have Avaricious Demonic Dragon Greedon. We did happen to have like a pretty cool Silverthorn Premium list with this card in it, but sadly enough it's not as strong. It's a bit gimmicky, but this is a fantastic card that is sometimes used in Hellheart 8 or Gabby Gabalus versions of Spike Brothers. Is a fantastic grade 3. If you happen to have any copies of this lying around, you fundamentally only really need one. Sadly enough, it does not really do that much for you in Dark Irregulars or any of the Art of Dark State archetypes, or like Gear Chronicles, for example. Sadly enough, it doesn't really work for you there, but in Spike Brothers, it is fantastic with Rising Nova. Alright, then moving on to Master of Gravity Barra Magnus, a fantastic card for Dark Irregular. For NLK combined with Barra Magnus allows you to have a bunch of multi-attacks, which potentially gets you about 78 attacks, and then you can also end up striding into 4 facts, which can make you discard 5, put crits back into your deck, pushes your opponent a bit more. It gets pretty disgusting. To say the least. So Barra Magnus is a bit of a mainstay right now in DI. It's one of the very first few cards to ever be introduced into Overdress, and it still is a very good holdover from since then. It's a very old card, but it sees still a whole lot of love. Now, some of new kids on the block. We have both of the grade 2 cards from the Festival Collection. Let's take a look first at the Dark States and Dragon Empire first. Both of them kind of have the same core skill mechanics when they're placed from hand. Sadly enough, you can't really utilize any multi-attack shenanigans with them unless you're Superior Calling from your hand. You Soul Charge 1 can help in some situations. It's kind of nice. This gets 5k until end of turn, so it's a 15k attacker by itself, which is good. Then Counterblast 1, choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or greater cards and retire it. That's not the best. I see this more as Dragon Empire archetype than anything else, but its second effect is choose a grade 2 or less card from your soul and call it to rearguard. So you can get stuff like Purple Trapezist, you can get any other grade 1 utility cards that you happen to have soul charged during the middle of the game, or if you're playing DI, you can get something back. DI doesn't really utilize a whole lot of soul calling other than maybe on your Barrow NLK turn, and there are some cards that are actually okay if you just call them from hand, but it still feels a little bit on the weaker side. I'd still say if you own it, keep it around. It might have some archetypes that might want to utilize it, but if you don't own this, you might not need it for a Dark States deck. But this could be pretty okay in Harry, depending on what the other cards that we're going to be getting next week, Tuesday, the 20th of August. We'll see what some of the other tech supports we're getting, especially since we're getting Lunatic Dragon, which is the Stride from the Stride deck set, so keep that in mind. Then the grade 2, same skill versus the first, when it's placed from other hand other than battle. Of course, you need to put that limitation. Then look at the top cards of your deck equal to your orders +1. Not really playing a whole lot of orders in premium. I think there's like one Nova deck that used to play like the prison order just for the extra soul charge, so that you can use it better on your buster turn, but it's not really needed. Then you can choose a grade 2 or greater card from your soul, put it into your hand, which can get you your G guards back, which is pretty good, or choose a set order. But it's mainly for the first skill rather than the second one. Again, this is one of the other ones that I feel very like, you don't really need it. If you own it, it's okay. But don't go out your way to buy this card. For premium, I wouldn't really go out my way. For overdress, however, could this do anything in Harry for overdress? We'll have to wait and see. Right now, I'm not really seeing it. Not really seeing it right now. Then Steam Performa Torge. If this card is put in your soul by ability, it is Pale Moon support. If you control a Pale Moon Vanguard, you could put a grade 3 from your deck into your soul. So you could put any of these grade 3s that we were talking about, Mikani, or the Gruesome Scythe Dragon into your soul, or Tricky Assistant, or Silverthorn Lukia. There's so many things that you can filter through your deck to put it into your soul, or Alice for Harry. It's just really good. I really feel that if you have any copies of this right now, it's very handy to get your hands on this. This is also going to be very handy for the overdress deck of Harry, so pick up any copies that you can. Then we also have Silverthorn Rising Dragon. Feels okay-ish because we have the crest of Harry, so your front row does get its own power thresholds, so this hitting for like a very cute 15 here and there, it's cute. Is it good? It filters through your deck for cards that you might want to use. It allows you to get a bit of hand selection. It's a little bit better in premium Harry than it is in overdress Harry, but you might see this with some variation of play. Some people might play 2, some people might play 3. It depends on what you feel most comfortable with. I am very hesitant because I feel like you have cards like Steam Performer, you have other better utility pieces that you might want to opt into instead of this card. Not saying it's bad, just saying it's okay. For sure, you want this for Lukia. This is a Lukia staple. So this is as a premium card, fantastic card. You're definitely gonna want this. For overdress, but it's kind of, we need to see what the rest of the cards do first to judge whether or not we want to still use this card. Then we have Silverthorn Marionette Lillian, another Silverthorn card. Very fantastic in Premium Harry because it gets you, allow you to soul charge anything at random, gets you one of your utility grade 1s or utility grade 2, or just something that you can utilize, because if it's ridden by a Pale Moon unit, you can just get it back to your hand. It's also a Workoroid unit. It's also very good in Nightmare Dolls as well. So hey, go for it. I think it's a pretty fantastic card. Some number of cards, some number of copies of this. It's also 10k. Would you want to run this in Lukia Premium? I till now have not really found a reason for it. I think the grade 2 Lukia is fundamentally just the other The other Lillian is fundamentally a little bit better because you can tutor through your deck, then soul charge a card from your deck with any of the targets that you want for your Silverthorn stuff. And it's also 19k attacker. Doesn't have the defensive capabilities, which can hamper the deck a little bit, but I think it's okay. Then we have Cutting Sword Dance Quiegra. I really like this card. I think a lot of people might not like it as much as I do. I think it's pretty okay in DI. I think it's pretty okay in Pale Moon. I think it's pretty okay in some variations of Gears, because it doesn't need to be placed from hand to use any of its skills. So you can time leap into it, you can soul charge it and call it. You can do anything that you need with it. It's better in DI. Like fundamentally almost always better in DI, because you want to utilize a card. You could choose from a card from your soul to add it back to your hand, so you can use some of those type of card effects, which is really good. And then for overdress, this is, we're kind of getting more into some overdress cards that you want to probably incorporate into your Harry deck for the overdress format, which is the Time Turner Dragon Clockwise, which is really good for the festival meta, which came out recently. I would say probably hold on to some copies of this if there's nothing better than it, if you happen to own it, because these were relatively cheap for a little bit when it came out. I think it might be sitting still pretty at decent prices, and a lot of the encounter stride decks that we've been gotten don't really utilize any energy fundamentally, so you're usually using the energy marker to just draw an extra card for the turn sometimes, and having the extra energy to spend on something good like Clockwise it's always fantastic. Then we have Falcate Performer. This used to be a cornerstone of a lot of Pale Moon decks in Premium. Sadly enough, it's not as strong as it used to be anymore. There's a lot of other viable options nowadays, but I do really still like this card a whole lot. Could it see some play in Overdress Harry? I would say yes. This also could still see some play in Premium Harry if you're focused on the Stage Performer Harry, the one that is the 12k Axle Marker creator that gets you the Starry Pop and the dragon that gets axle markers for you, creates a stage and stuff like that. So you can still like put this into your soul and get some multi-attack shenanigans going off on it. So I really like this card a whole lot, especially if you can reset this card with Purple Trapezist. It gives you a reset again. It's very spooky to say the least. Friend of the Netherworld Ling could possibly see a little bit of play, or at least some people might try this out if there's no good ways of getting some good rearguards into your soul. I really like this card a whole lot. Every time that we do get like new archetype support for Dark State archetypes, I constantly look back to this card again to see whether or not this can be squeezed into any amount of ratios, that it is an option that we can constantly keep on going to. Then we have Brainwash Swola. Soul Charge 1, 5k. I could see it work. Random soul charging, if you don't want to look for the selective soul charging of the top two, is an option. It does get a whole lot bigger. This was played in Jet because of being able to soul charge randomly, and Harry does on Stride does allow you to soul charge, so you can always get this to like 18k or a bit larger with how many multi-attacks you can tend to force out in your opponent, forcing him to guard. This card, it is focused around Luquier primarily, but it doesn't say Luquier, it just asks for Pale Moon Vanguard. And since we have our second Pale Moon Vanguard in Harry, it is a Purple Trapezist, yet again. We do have Cutie Paratrooper and Overdress, but Cutie Paratrooper does require you to have a Harry Vanguard and also Crest, I think. And it's also not, it does need to be placed, both of them kind of needs to be placed during the main phase or not the battle phase. You know, it's a lot of very weird terminology that's working with, so it doesn't get you weird combo shenanigans of resetting your opponent's board. But I'm like, just lock it behind once per turn. If you lock it behind once per turn, or like once per name, even like how we have in some of the Overdress archetypes, or even in some of Bermuda archetypes, have like once per name. I feel like we can express more design creativity with some of these archetypes, which would be kind of nice for Premium for sure. But it's fine. Could you use it in Premium? Sadly not. No, it's not that good. It's not that good for premium. Solidly enough, a lot of Nightmare Doll stuff needs workroids. Lukia can only really work with Silverthorn units. It doesn't even work with Purple Trapezes. It's used Zelma, which is its own Purple Trapezes, and Harry also doesn't really have space for this. It's really focused on the Magia Doll engine right now, so sadly enough, I don't think you could really find space for this at the moment. But I made this as an honorable mention for Harry for Overdress. I possibly feel like, depending on what Lunatic Dragon does, or any of the other Masquerade, the Phantom Mask Harry does for the Stride deck, I could see this being a thing. If it selects like certain grades that you can call from Soul, stuff like that, and this can be chosen as a grade 0, I feel like this could make it work. Now we have Jewel Core. This used to be a very hot button card when it came out with the first trial decks. It was really hard played in like Bruce. Sadly enough, Bruce doesn't really utilize it as much as it used to anymore. It has a lot of its own Diablo key pieces. Premium doesn't really utilize this card a whole lot either. But in Overdress, with the Harry stuff, I feel like this card could probably make a comeback again. Having a scaling 13k grade 1 rear guard that you can possibly put into Soul, so you could call it Out of Your Soul. It gets a little bit of power because it gets plus 2k from the Harry skill, makes it 10k attacker. Then its own skill, it's 15k plus whatever face up G units that you have face up in your G zone, so it could become a 25k to 30k attacker by itself as a great one. And especially if it goes into Souls, you don't end up losing any rear guards, or you could potentially keep some rear guards on board, or you can call it in the back row as a booster. I feel like this card could have a whole lot of good utility going forward, so keep your eyes on this card. I think a lot of people might be sleeping on it. I think it's pretty okay. Depends on obviously what we're getting, but I think this is it's an okay card to talk about. Then we have Steam Skara Zargon. This used to be played a little bit in Gear Chronicles. It's still played. It's still played a little bit in Gear Chronicle. Gear Chronicle Premium doesn't really have the space for it, sadly. It is focused a lot more on its time leap shenanigans. Spike doesn't really use this. Pale Moon doesn't use this either. Could Harry utilize this in Overdress? I am saying maybe. Again, a lot of these cards on the list are all tentative. It's all really dependent on what the final cards that we're getting does, and whether or not those can make or break what some of these cards can end up doing to the deck. I like it. I like this card a whole lot, being able to choose cards from your drop zone to put into your Soul. Potentially you end up PGing with pieces that you needed, and it's very tough for you to get like extra good attackers on the board. Zargon allows you to get key utility pieces from your drop zone back into your Soul, and allows you to multi-attack and do shenanigans with them again. I like it a whole lot, and especially if you're on like later stages of the game, this card becomes a lot more difficult to guard, or sometimes depending if it's a booster under your vanguard, it's very difficult for your opponent to guard it anyway. So it's a darned if you do, darned if you don't situation with this card a lot of the times. Somebody typo in the chat had just mentioned, what about Goemon for premium decks? Sadly enough, a lot of premium decks kind of have their own guard restrict right now. You can't really utilize that a lot in premium. Like a lot of I forget what it's called, the grade 3 from DI. I'm gonna put it up as an image. Trust me, I don't remember it right now off the top of my head. That has guard restrict already. The multi-attacks that you do in gears, you don't have the space for Goemon because you don't really soul charge from rear guard. Spikes could potentially use it, but they have a lot less space than other archetypes because it's filled with a lot of grade 3s. And I think the oversaturation of multi-attacks that they have, they can't really utilize a card like Goemon efficiently, because especially since you need to use the Vanguard skill to soul charge from rear guard circle, right? It needs to be put into yourself via Vanguard's ability. A Pale Moon could maybe utilize it. It may be an Overdress. Could it possibly see Overdress play? Depends on what Harry does. Yeah, depends on if Harry puts the card into Soul. I could see Goemon doing something. Yeah. Maybe. It's a very huge maybe. A lot of the other Dark States decks in Premium, sadly enough, can't really make use of Goemon as much as the other archetypes. I think the only thing that comes close is like DI, but they have their own guard restrict already. And that another mention of a Pale Moon card that you possibly could be seeing is a Vidroth Dragon. You might be thinking, but hey, this is Blankmire support. The Blankmire support is only really important about the lower 2 cards, whether or not it stays on a board or anything, but you can call any rearguard from your soul at any stage of the game, which is fantastic. You can soul charge, which feeds into a lot of your shenanigans that you can do with Harry, and it goes back into your soul at the end of turn, which is fantastic. Which is a really, really good card. I think this is one of the sleepers that I think, who had sent it to me? I think it was Joyce, one of our awesome viewers, has always suggested like really cool cards to me before, and suggested me this one too as well. I like the idea of this in Harry, especially if we don't have good utility pieces of being able. Sadly enough, it does have the restricted again of other than the battle phase, but that's fine. It's fine. How do you counter charge a little bit in Harry? You don't really have a lot of counter charging. You don't really have a whole lot of counter charging. I think there's like one in Overdress that has a bit of counter charging in it, which I will put on the screen again. Definitely will remember to put some of these cards on the screen. But other than that, not much at all. You'll need to like utilize a lot of in archetype soul charging, and we'll have to make do with that. That's basically what it comes down to. Other than that, that's my take on premium dark states, or like introducing newer players from premium, from dark states overdress into premium, and cards they might want to consider if they want to play premium themselves. If you want to have like a way more closer look at the format, head over to Vanguard Paradox, and there is a premium tag that shows a lot of the dark state archetypes, which is Gear Chronicle, Pale Moon, Spike Brothers, Dark Irregular. So all of the purple archetypes you can take a look at, and you can try to get familiar with some of the archetypes and what they do and what you can look forward to probably trying to pick up or single out what you might need. Very good resource. Head on over to that website and give it a go and have fun. Just have fun with premium. It can be a little bit daunting for sure. It's more than 13 years, almost close to, but 10-12 years of history of Vanguard, and it's a little bit spooky. I get you, but trust me, it's a whole lot of fun being able to play whatever you liked, whatever you were introduced into, and have fun with it. So be awesome, stay awesome, have a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for watching the channel, and be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Good games.